the signature technique of the Turtle School, and pretty much unquestionably the most iconic fictional attack in existence. Dragon Ball gets a lot of mileage out of the old Turtle Wave, and over the years, our guys have used it in basically every which way you can imagine. And when I say that, I mean it. The Kamehameha has been utilized over 200 times in the long lifespan of the series, and we're going to talk about all of them. But before that, I just wanted to share some cool trivia with you. While it's true that the Kame part of the move translates to turtle, the real inspiration behind the move was actually the late King Kamehameha of Hawaii, who grew up to be a powerful conqueror. It's likely that Toriyama thought about how he introduced the Turtle Hermit earlier in the story, and thought it would be a funny pun to have the Turtle Hermit's special move be the Kamehameha, further emphasized by the fact that Kame Sennin was also introduced wearing stereotypically Hawaiian attire. But speaking of that introduction, we have a lot to go over, so let's not waste any more time. We're essentially going to go through every example of a Kamehameha in the Dragon Ball story and rate it out of 10. There are a few criteria I want to use to base my rating. Obviously, the aesthetic presentation does matter, as I like my energy beams pretty. Additionally, how creative the use of the technique is. But most important is how narratively poignant the scene is. Essentially, I mean how the use of the technique ties into the plot of the story, as nothing really beats a narratively rich scene paired with a big energy blast. I'd also like to mention that the effectiveness of the Kamehameha doesn't necessarily dictate my score. I care more about how good the scene in question actually is over the in-universe effect the blast had. And just for comparison, by default, I'd put a generic ki blast at a rating of like 4, so a Kamehameha would have to suck pretty badly for it to get below a 4. Okay, with that out of the way, let's go. Starting off, we have the original Kamehameha, and it's a pretty strong one. Goku goes to see Muten Roshi under the pretense that he's an incredibly powerful master, but it's kinda hard to believe that when he gets bodied by Chi-Chi and then struggles to climb a stone wall. Essentially, the audience should be about as skeptical as Bulma. That's why it's so funny when he buffs up into an entire house and blows up the mountain, being so strong that he accidentally destroys the entire thing instead of just putting out the fire. It's a pretty great joke, while also being a genuinely cool way to end off the first volume of Dragon Ball. It's a very strong start, so let's give it a 9. After that, Goku tries his hand at the technique, and gets it on his first try, showing Roshi how much potential he has, leading to him offering to train Goku. It's pretty solid, not super impressive, but important for the plot, so let's give it a 6.3. Next is Goku's blast that created a tiny hole in Pilaf's jail, which lets Oolong escape and make the infamous underwear wish. It's pretty funny while also being kinda clutch, so let's give it a 6.9. After that, Pilaf learns from his mistakes and puts them in an even stronger prison. Wait, why didn't he just put them in that one in the first place? Anyways, Goku tries to blast this one too to no effect. It's like the textbook example of a generic ki blast, so 4. Now we have to jump all the way to Jackie Chun's match against Krillin, where after Krillin tricks Chun with some underwear he had on him, Jackie uses the Kamehameha to propel himself back to the arena to avoid a ring out. It's a pretty creative use of the technique, so I'll give it a solid 7.7. After that, we get the series' first beam clash, where Jackie Chun goats Goku into a beam measuring contest, where they're evenly matched and both get blown back. It's a really cool scene and also serves to show just how strong Goku has become. Let's give it an 8.3. Later into their match though, we get the big one. With Great Ape Goku on the loose, it seems Jackie's only option is to buff up and throw out his strongest Kamehameha. Yamcha tries to tell him about the tail, but it's too late. He launches a full power attack, killing Goku. Or at least that's what it looks like. But in reality, Chun's real target was the moon itself. That's right, he blew up the entire moon. What? Beyond that being an insane feat, the bait and switch here was really good, combined with the joke afterwards where the announcer is mad at him for blowing up the moon. It's genuinely amazing, like top tier. Let's give it a 9.7. After that, when their match resumes, Goku uses his own Kamehameha to force Jackie into the air, before landing a knockout kick, nearly winning the match. It was a pretty good combo, so let's give it a 7. Now let's jump over to Muscle Tower, where Goku blows off Major Metallic's head, which was a pretty metal scene, followed up with Metallic continuing to fight headless, though he eventually just runs out of battery. Pretty cool though, I'd give this one a 6.8. Next, Goku tries his beam out on the Jiggler, only for it to be deflected, and I'll once again say, I'm not rating based on how effective the blast is, I'm rating how good the scene is. And in this case, this is a great way to hype up the Jiggler as a legitimate threat, so let's give this one a 7.2. Now we sail into the Pirate Cave adventure, where a giant octopus tries to eat Goku, so Goku responds by roasting him and becoming the predator himself, which is a pretty hilarious turn of events, so a 7.4. Then, later on, as the Pirate Cave collapses, Goku uses his Kamehameha to quickly propel our gang's submarine out of the depths. A pretty clutch and hype moment. Let's give it an 8. Moving on, Goku faces the world's greatest assassin, Tao Pai Pai, and gets humbled by his strongest technique, having little to no effect, followed up by Tao sending his own blast, nearly killing our hero. It's very similar to the Jiggler scene, but taken to the next level. Let's give it an 8.2. A while later, Goku decides the entire Red Ribbon Army's gotta die, so he goes to solo their entire headquarters. During that fight, Goku takes out 2 gunships with an aerial Kamehameha, which is a pretty cool and dynamic scene, but ultimately not very plot relevant. Being cool can only get you so far, so let's give it a 7. Next up, we see Fortune Teller Baba's mystery fighter bust out a Kamehameha, which is good foreshadowing as to who he is, while also being a good showing for Goku, as he dodges it with the afterimage technique. Let's say 7.5. With Goku in the air, the mysterious fighter thinks Goku is a sitting duck for another blast, but that's when he's shocked to see Goku charging up his own blast, decisively overpowering the mystery fighter. It's a pretty hype exchange while also letting Goku's late grandfather Gohan see how far his son has come since his death. Pretty solid. Let's say 8.5. After that, Goku has a duel with the Pilaf gang for all the marbles. They bust out their huge mech and do a mecha anime-esque combination, only for Goku to immediately blast off its arm. It's a pretty good gag scene, so let's give it a 7.8. This takes us into the 22nd tournament, where we get to see how far Yamcha has come in his own training. To the shock of his master and his fellow student, he busts out the Kamehameha, which we can assume he's been keeping secret. However, unfortunately for him, Ten Shinhan is too much of a Giga Chad, reflecting Yamcha's own attack back at him. Yamcha dodges, but it's all part of Ten Shinhan's plan, landing a devastating kick to finish off Yamcha. It's a really solid scene, giving Yamcha a moment to shine. Unfortunately for him though, he's overshadowed by how goated Ten Shinhan is, the scene being an even better way to hype up Ten Shinhan as a powerful antagonist. Let's say 9.4. Then in a later match, Chaozu is knowledge checking Krillin by flying above him and spamming energy blasts. So despite never firing one before, Krillin has no choice but to try his hand at a Kamehameha. It seems like Krillin is going to beam clash with Chaozu, but that's when instead he dodges Chaozu's ray and instead jumps up landing a direct hit, though since it's his first time it lacks much raw power. But all in all, another excellent scene. I'd give it a 9.2. Back with Ten Shinhan, he enjoyed roasting a Turtle School fighter with their own techniques so much that he wants to go back for another bite, throwing his own Kamehameha at its creator, and due to its immense power, Jackie has to deflect it to protect the audience. And I think this is the first instance of a fighter deflecting an attack to protect the general public. Another very solid scene. The 22nd just doesn't miss. Let's give it an 8.5. After that, Goku hits Krillin with a devastating combo, charging his Kamehameha as he runs up, then jumping into the air, only to use his Kamehameha to propel himself towards Krillin at high speed, landing a devastating punch. Similarly to Ten Shinhan vs Yamcha, this scene is the first of several to really hype up how strong Goku is, getting us pumped for the eventual finale with Ten Shinhan. In terms of pure coolness, it's way up there, but it's a bit weaker than the last few narratively, so let's give it an 8.4. In response, Krillin counters with his own, with Goku essentially telling him that he knows how to nullify the Kamehameha. However, Krillin never intended to win with his beam. It was all just a distraction to grab Goku's tail. Sadly for him, Goku is simply him, as to honor his late grandfather's last request, he trained his tail to remove its weakness over the time skip. This scene is actually really good. It's a great battle IQ moment for Krillin, using Goku's overconfidence against him, while also showing how advanced Goku is. This might be controversial, but I want to give this one a 9.5. That takes us into the final round, where we have Goku perform a combo and start charging a Kamehameha. However, he changes his mind and doesn't fire it, as he knows Ten Shinhan could reflect it. Now generally I didn't count any Kamehameha that gets interrupted before firing, but in this case Goku actively chose not to fire it, and I feel like that's a bit different than being interrupted. This is yet another good battle IQ moment for Goku. Let's say a solid 8. Then later into the fight, Goku uses a downward Kamehameha to save himself from ringing out. This is essentially the same thing Jackie Chun did last tournament, so we'll put this one slightly below that one for 7.6. Then around the same time, Suru Senin has Chaozu cheating for Ten Shinhan, but being a true warrior, he wants to win on his own, and before Suru Senin can attack Ten Shinhan for his betrayal, Kame Sennin hits him with that Team Rocket treatment. It's a pretty good conclusion of the Crane vs. Turtle School narrative, so let's give it a 7.7. And finally, we get the last exchange between Ten Shinhan and Goku, where it looks like it's over for Goku, who will fall out of bounds, but he tries one last gambit, a Kamehameha, but the Kamehameha won't work on him. What is Goku thinking? Well, Goku's not stupid. Instead of firing the Kamehameha, he fires himself, putting everything he has into one last hit. It's pretty hype, so let's say 8.6. And as Goku falls, he uses his last drops of energy to slightly slow his descent, but then, as it looks like he'll win, he comedically gets hit by a car before Ten Shinhan touches the ground. Pretty funny bait and switch, let's say 7. Ha! What was that, you ask? You've just been hit with the mighty subscription wave, forcing you to subscribe to the channel. What's that? Psst, psst, psst. I already did this bit before. Psst, psst, psst. Nah, it's fine, they probably don't remember. After the tournament, Tambourine attempts to escape, so Goku propels himself upward with the Noibo while charging a Kamehameha, going on to vaporize Tambourine, which was pretty creative, and a pretty satisfying moment after what he did to Krillin. 8.3. Unfortunately, Goku's dominance doesn't last, because he's getting bodied by Piccolo, with even his ace in the hole having basically no effect. It's also cool how this scene foreshadows the Mafuba, as Piccolo is worried for a second while Goku charges up. But yeah, great way to highlight the gap between Goku and Piccolo. Solid 8. It then takes a while, but Goku eventually gets his revenge. In their rematch, Piccolo slams Goku into the ground, so Goku takes advantage of the moment to charge up his Kamehameha, then jump out for a surprise attack. But even then, Piccolo is ready to block it, so Goku bends the blast mid-flight, hitting Piccolo from behind. This one's pretty dynamic, but not as plot relevant as the last few. You can only get so high from looking cool, but the creative use also helps. Let's say 7.8. And finally, a real good one. In the final moments of their duel, things look bad for Goku, but Son Goku isn't one to give up till his last breath. Using his only remaining good limb, he fires a Kamehameha to shoot himself up to Piccolo, slamming through him with the full force of his inner potential Korin helped him unlock, saving the world from Piccolo and avenging his fallen friends. Now, you probably wouldn't think of Kamehameha when talking about Goku's Ozaru Fist, but on a technical level, it just is. Goku can't fly at this point, so all the force of his punch had to have been generated by the Kamehameha. Solid 9.6, ending off Goku's child era strong. Alright, on to the 23rd, where our next Turtle Wave takes place during Krillin's fight with Piccolo, where despite putting up a respectable performance, Piccolo has a clear advantage, and realizing his only chance is landing one big hit, Krillin throws out a massive Kamehameha. Sadly for him, Piccolo saw through him and avoided it with an afterimage, securing the W. Regardless, it was a pretty good showing for Krillin, and even more so for Piccolo Jr. Plus, the scale of this blast was really impressive. I'd say like an 8.1. During Goku and Piccolo's match, Goku casually uses a Kamehameha to propel himself back into the ring. This seems pretty standard, until we learn at the end of the fight that Goku has been hiding the fact that he's learned the flight technique, so this is retroactively a cool moment of Goku holding his cards. But it's still pretty standard by this point, so let's say 6. Next up is the first example of the Super Kamehameha. I think a lot of people don't realize the Kamehameha in Z is actively a different technique than what we saw in early Dragon Ball. Goku puts a lot of emphasis on it being a Super Kamehameha, and Goku isn't one to hype himself up for no reason like Vegeta, so it's very likely a more refined technique than the original. Goku then uses that technique to make light work of Piccolo's own blast, with the raw scale of this clash being really cool. The Budokai Tenkaichi building actively blows down, just from the wind force of this clash. This one is honestly pretty similar to the first beam struggle we had, so let's give this one a similar score of 8.4. Next is the big Piccolo scene, where Piccolo tries to overwhelm Goku with size, but surprisingly, Goku taunts Piccolo to get even bigger, which we find out he did so he could propel himself inside Piccolo and retrieve the sealed Kami. This is another great scene, showing how clever Goku is for an 8. Now with the risk of Kami no longer holding Goku back, they jump up to high gear, moving beyond even Kami's perception. During that skirmish, Goku surprises Piccolo with a burst of speed thanks to a Kamehameha fired from his feet, which, if you think about it, it's kinda just a more advanced version of the strat he's been doing for a while now, where he launches himself at his opponent with the Kamehameha. This is undeniably a fun scene, but similarly to the bending Kamehameha against King Piccolo, it's really just a fun scene with no substantial plot relevance, so it gets a similar 7.8. Then, once again, a bit later, Goku avoids Piccolo's heat-seeking blast by propelling himself with a casual Kamehameha for another 6. And to end off the first half of Dragon Ball, after successfully tanking Piccolo's explosive wave, Goku responds by slamming his meteor combo into the exhausted Piccolo, culminating in a downward Kamehameha, cratering Piccolo into the ground. Which of course, seems like the end of the fight, but really it's a bait and switch for Piccolo to take the upper hand again. But regardless, it's a really solid scene, and it does a great job giving us a false sense of security before Piccolo returns. So let's give it an 8.7. Alright, I'm gonna level with you guys. I have gone through and taken a screenshot of literally every Kamehameha in the series, from GT to Super, and I fully expected to cover everything in one video, but after I started writing, I realized I just have too much to say about each of these. If I really forced myself to cover everything here, I'd end up rushing through and not doing each turtle wave justice, so for the sake of quality, I'm gonna cut it up into multiple videos, this one being the OG Dragon Ball section, with more to come in the near future. Interestingly, I haven't scored anything out of 5 yet. We'll have to see if that changes in the coming parts. So yeah, I'm a pretty big fan of turtles and Hawaiian royalty. I've had a lot of fun discussing these first few, so I'm excited to keep going. Stay tuned, and on that I hope you have a great day, and I'll see you next time.